Hello, my name is Dorico Scott, and this is my final presentation for interviewing and investigation. So, in this course, we had to do a project that expanded over the full 8 weeks of the course. The crime for my assignment was aggravated assault. The assault took place on January 18, 2018, on a Thursday at 1111 Cashmere Drive. The victim in the crime was Mr. Bobby Rancliffe. Mr. Bobby Rancliffe was walking down the street and an individual grabbed him from behind. Um, Mr. Rancliffe reported that he felt a knife in his back or something sharp in his back. He was hit over his head and basically left there. The individual who grabbed him from behind asked him for all his money and put the knife in, put the sharp object in his back and hit him over his head and left him there and took off running. Excuse me. Witnesses for this crime was Mr. Jimmy Purnell, date of birth 7/18/79, a male. He's Caucasian. He's about 6 foot. He lives at 1113 Cashmere Drive, which is the neighbor to Mr. Bobby Rucliffe, who's the victim. Date of birth 3/20/89. He's male and Caucasian as well. Another witness for this crime is Mr. Keith Browder. Mr. Browder lives at 1115 Cashmere Drive. His birthday is 4/25/82. He's a male and he's an African American. He stands at about 6 foot. These witnesses reported that they were standing in the yard of Mr. Mr. Purnell when the series of events happened. Um, Here is a visual aid of the police report. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but listed at the top there, the crime is aggravated assault. The location of the crime, 1111 Cashmere Drive, and this is the victim. The witnesses, as described, Mr. Purnell and Mr. Browder, are listed below as well. These witnesses both state that they were standing outside of Mr. Purnell's home when they saw um, Mr. Raycliffe being kind of held from behind, and a scream, and then the guy took off running. The suspect, Mr. Purnell, states that he did not see an assault take place. He states that Mr. Browder, who was facing him, saw the assault take place behind him. Mr. Browder was able to describe the young man, and he said that he noticed his neighbor being choked from behind. He states when he said, "Hey, what's going on over there?" The suspect struck the victim and proceeded to run the opposite direction. Mr. Browder also states that the suspect was the person that he had seen previously visit the residence before the situation that took place on the 18th. And I asked, excuse me, Mr. Browder was asked if he could identify the suspect, and Browder states that the suspect was wearing a black jacket and blue jeans. He said that the suspect was wearing Rock Revival blue jeans, a black Adidas bomber jacket, and white and black Adidas tennis shoes. The suspect was later identified as Mr. Jake Adams. Here's a visual of the suspect report. Mr. Jake Adams, birthday 1/8 of 1990. He's male. He's African American. Mr. Adams is about 6'1", 225 pounds. Mr. Adams is muscular built, and once he was apprehended, he was wearing the black Adidas bomber jacket, blue Rock Revival jeans, white and black Adidas tennis shoes. Mr. Mr. Adams has a thick amount of hair. It's a curly texture. He's clean shaven, very well spoken and polite. Upon doing the interview and interrogation with Mr. Adams, it appeared that Mr. Adams had received a phone call from his sister, who resided at 1111 Cashmere Drive with Mr. Bobby Radcliffe, the victim. Um, Mr. Adams' sister is the girlfriend of the victim. The sister went ahead and called Mr. Adams, the suspect, explaining to him that there had been an argument between her and her boyfriend, who was the victim. Um, Mr. Adams expressed that he did not get along well with the victim previously because he did not like how he had treated his sister in previous occasions. Once the sister called the suspect, Mr. Adams, she explained that Mr. Recluse, the victim, had pushed her, and that's when Mr. Adams got angry about the situation, and he proceeded to go over to their residence, and that's where he saw the victim standing outside. Mr. Adams states that he only wanted to scare the victim, and first he stated that he did not have a weapon. He grabbed the victim from behind and he hit him with his fist, and then he took off running away from the scene. He just wanted to scare the victim. Later in the interview and the investigation, it came out Mr. Adams admitted to actually having a pocket knife that he held in his hand, not intentionally trying to stab the victim, but only to scare him. So Mr. Adams is the suspect, and he did admit and a signed confession that the suspect has given confession to the crime in the interrogation. The suspect was recorded, admitted to the crime at hand, and the suspect also completed a written confession with his signature. Um, this is this is the interrogation that took place, and we want to bring forth charges on the suspect, Mr. Jake Adams. Thank you.